GE's B40-8W, a locomotive that is universally loved by rail fans and universally hated by railroaders. These made their debut in the early 90s. They were unique to Santa Fe and later BNSF. A total of 84 were produced, but as of 2023, their numbers are dwindling, especially on BNSF. While the B40-8W still sees regular use as yard power, rough estimates show that only 10 to 15 remain on the roster, including the ones in deadlines, and only 4 remain in their original ATSF colors. There's 552, which travels between West Quincy, Missouri and Galesburg, Illinois. 554, which travels between Galesburg and Chicago, Illinois. 542, which runs H trains between Superior, Wisconsin and Minneapolis, Minnesota. And triple nickel number 555, which is laid up in Galveston, Texas, with an unknown fate. With so few of these iconic locomotives left, I think it's only appropriate that we document them while they're still in revenue service. So today, we'll be capturing history as we chase the very last of Santa Fe's Superfleet B40-8W's across Illinois and Iowa. It's the evening of July 25th, 2023, and we're just outside of Mount Pleasant, Iowa, on the Ottumwa Sub, an incredibly old stretch of track that was built way back in 1855. Here, we see 554 and an SD60M duo pulling a local freight that originated in Eddyville, Iowa. Its destination, Burlington. The B40-8W was developed to be a fast and powerful road locomotive. They were frequently used on the Southern Transcon, where they specialized in pulling fast priority intermodals. Today, however, they're restricted to yard and local service. The next place we catch this local is in Danville, Iowa. Highway 34 parallels this stretch of track from Galesburg all the way to Ottumwa, making chases relatively easy. Just a few minutes later, 1409's headlights appeared in the distance. Back in the late 80s, EMD used SD60Ms as test beds for their first AC-powered road locomotives. While none of the experimental SD60 Max saw revenue service, the innovations made on them led to the creation of the extremely successful and reliable SD70 Mac. On the way to Burlington, we come across 554's sister train headed west to Eddyville. It's got an equally amazing lash-up and quite a small load for delivery. With the last minutes of daylight poking over the horizon, we arrived in Burlington, and pretty soon, 554 did too. Another thing that's neat about the Dash 8s is that they were the first locomotive to utilize GE's Comfort Cab, which has numerous benefits, such as increased protection in a collision, more space for the crews inside, and better visibility. With these cabs, there's a lot more steel in the nose, so not only is it stronger than a standard cab, but it also tends to deflect objects when it hits them, and the collision posts inside are spread apart quite a bit, which helps to distribute the energy of an impact. With all these benefits, it's no surprise as to why the Comfort Cab quickly became the standard on GE locomotives, both here and abroad. After coming to a stop, A couple crew members got out to flip some switches so the train can drop off its cars on the right track. Once this yard gets full, either these engines or 1755 and 525 will take everything back to Galesburg on MBUR-GAL for further sorting and distribution. One of the greatest benefits offered by all B-type -8s is their B-B wheel arrangement. The shorter trucks reduce wear on the wheels and rails when taking curves, and with fewer traction motors to distribute power to, this means the B-type -8s can accelerate trains very quickly. However, their traction motors do stand a greater chance of becoming overloaded, but with an experienced engineer operating a locomotive in good working order, that shouldn't happen. Once the train came to a stop, the crew reset a couple switches, applied the handbrakes, and disconnected Fred, otherwise known as the flashing rear end device. This is what took the jobs of cabooses and their crews in the early 80s. Interestingly, it's powered by compressed air that it draws from the train line. With everything in ship shape, the motive power can now be disconnected and parked by the yard office. Because of this double main, the locomotives have to pull all the way up to a crossover switch just outside of the yard before coming on back. Just as night fell, this classic 90s trio came to their final stop. There ain't much left to do now except put the locomotives into auto start mode and turn out the lights. Here we are in Galesburg, Illinois. It's the morning of August 5th, and 552 has just gotten a fresh crew. These engines are getting ready to pull MGAL-WQM south to West Quincy, Missouri. But first, some inbound power has to shove back into the mechanical section of the yard. You'll notice the third engine is a -9 war bonnet. This is 643, which we've seen several times now. Once in Oklahoma leading to mixed freight, and once more in Peck Park pulling an intermodal. It's already rare to see Santa Fe war bonnets on mainline freight, but now their scarcity has only increased. BNSF has decided to put them on hump sets around their system. There's 4 at Northtown and 4 here in Galesburg, and I'm sure many more will start appearing at hump yards around the nation. The good news is that Santa Fe war bonnets will still be around for years to come, as hump units rarely get changed out. But hump service will likely be the last assignments these old engines ever see. Once all the tracks were clear, 552 and its train got to move on. The -8s were the last 4-axle locomotives ever made by General Electric. Railroads moved strictly to 6-axle power because it offered much more tractive effort, better lugging at low speeds, and eventually more horsepower. But they lost the quick acceleration and reduced wear offered by 4-axle engines. What's super neat about this engine is that the lettering on its long hood looks just as red and vibrant as the day it was made. I would like to say 552 has stood the test of time, but it was actually repainted earlier this year in an effort to cover up graffiti. Both sides of the long hood are like this, making 552 the most recent addition to BNSF's long list of oddballs on their roster. Another unique engine you'll find on this train is BN1670. Look at its BNSF patch on the cab. It's blue instead of white. I can't say I've ever seen that before. Several minutes after 552 disappeared into the yard, it reappeared at the south end of the runaround mains, hooked up to its cars. Since there are some great camera angles just south of the yard, and this manifest will be departing very soon, I think it's only fitting that we catch it once more. The next time we see 552 is on August 18th in Bushnell, Illinois, once again hauling GALWQM. If you've ever tried to catch an M train before, then you know it's the mother of all waiting games. M's are pretty low priority on the railroad, so they can be stopped for hours on end while multiple trains pass. But eventually, the wait pays off. One thing you'll notice is that the middle engine does not have a cab. While this rolling brick resembles a slug in many ways, it's actually a GP60B. This locomotive has its own prime mover and can operate under its own power. 334 is controlled by MU signals coming from the lead engine, and inside its nose there's nothing but the dynamic brake grid, radio equipment, and the electrical cabinet. Once a train was gone, the chase can begin. Unbeknownst to me, however, chasing trains on the Brookfield sub is terrible. They travel at highway speeds and have a straight shot between towns, where roads don't. But all is not lost though, because by a sheer stroke of luck, we get this perfectly timed shot. The next town we catch 552 in is in Golden, Illinois, which is home to an incredibly neat windmill that dates back to the 1870s. If it weren't for a priority mixed freight forcing 552 and its train to stop, we never would have caught it here. If you have the opportunity to catch 552, do it, because I don't think this engine will be around for much longer. It's so problematic that it has to stay within 250 miles of the Galesburg shops, and something needs to be fixed on it every couple of weeks. I don't know the exact criteria a locomotive has to meet for it to be scrapped, but I imagine 552 is getting close to it. BNSF has been limping its Dash 8s along for the past several years now. Many haven't had a rebuild in over 2 decades, and it looks like they're just going to be used until they drop. There is a possibility that several B40-8W's could get converted into Dash 9s internally, but that would be a very resource-intensive project, and with so few left, the railroad likely won't see it as worthwhile. While it's true these next couple years will be the last we see of Dash 8s on Class 1s, they ain't going away for good. Several are in preservation, including a B40-8W, and many more haul freight for short lines. But still, try and capture these rare and aging locomotives while they're still around, especially the few that remain on Class 1s. Thanks for watching. If y'all enjoyed this video, consider checking out some other ones of mine. Also, maybe pass yourself by the merch shop. Anyways, till next time.